Zach, the 20-team playoff idea. College football finally expanded the playoff, but apparently they can't decide how much they want to expand it. They can't agree on it, and now they're trying to like meet in the middle. And oftentimes, when it comes to it, I don't know if you've experienced this in your life, Zach, but oftentimes compromise, nobody really gets what they want. When you try to compromise, you just end up with both people pretty unhappy at the situation. And that's what it feels like this 20 team playoff idea kind of is that this is just kind of a compromise thought process. So let me tell you what's happening first, and then we'll get Zach's thoughts on it. So the college football, there is a 20 team college football playoff concept being reported out there. Josh Pate reports that that concept will be discussed on Monday. That was also confirmed by Ross Dellinger. Dan Wolken also was talking about it. And the thought process here is that you would essentially have the 16 team playoff, but your power four play, you would have power four play in games that would be a part of this concept. And the CFP leadership would essentially have those replace the Big Ten championship, the SEC championship, the Big 12 championship, and these would, the way I understand it, now maybe there's some differences here, and obviously they'll probably iron these out on Monday when they talk. The way I understand it is that these will be like your last spot for each conference to get in. So instead of the Big Ten championship game, you would be seeing like the final spot for the Big Ten to get in, the final spot for the SEC to get in. Now, like I said, they could change that, but the way it sits right now, from the way I understand it, I hate that. I hate that. Why are we having more postseason games with more conference play? Like, this is one of the reasons why the Big Ten championship game, the SEC championship game, are looked upon as not like worthless, but definitely not as big to some people, because the postseason's not supposed to be about playing teams in your conference again and getting those rematches. It's supposed to be playing other conferences. It's supposed to be going up against other conferences, and that's something that I do like about the 2014 playoff, is that they talked about how they would structure that in a way that it wouldn't just be rankings. They would try to stay true to the rankings as much as they possibly can, but they would not put two Big 12 teams against each other in the 2014 playoff in the first round. They would try to, adjust the rankings a little bit and go with a Big 10 team versus a Big 12 team and an SEC team versus a Big 10 team and do all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I'm getting too much into my thought process here. I want to hear your thoughts, Zach. The 20 team playoff, are you with me where it's kind of like it's a compromise, nobody wins, let's just get back to what we want? Or do you see it differently? What are your thoughts?
Well, so I remember a while back we talked about the idea, and this was Big Ten only, not the playoff. But you liked the idea of having like the 3 and 6 of the Big Ten playing for a playoff spot and the 4 and 5 playing for a playoff spot if we went to like a 16 or a 2014 model, right?
Yes, to a certain extent, yes.
The so I can see where they're coming from in that, because what it seems like they're trying to do with the 20 team playoff, and I think I read this somewhere else, is they're trying to recoup some of the money for the conferences instead of having a conference championship game, which will get canned if the playoff expands. Like the Big Ten commissioner, I think Tony Petitti essentially said that.
Yeah,
Like we're
and
going
the
to go to the
SEC does not want to lose theirs. Yeah,
yeah.
Tony Petitti, he was asked straight up, like, what would happen to the Big Ten championship game, and he was like, as of right now, it would go away. Yeah,
Yeah. So it does seem like that idea, the play-in model is a concession to the conferences and probably specifically to Greg Sankey and the SEC to say, hey, we still want you to get that revenue. It's just going to be in a different way with different teams, not your top two teams. I I'll be honest, I don't understand why this is so hard. Just go to 16 because you're not really expanding anything in terms of amount of rounds at that point. It's not hard. 16 teams and reorder the structure. Like, we don't have to wait 3 weeks between the first round and the quarterfinals. We don't need to have the quarterfinals and bowl games. Like, this should not be hard. Why is this so hard? I don't
TV,
understand it.
TV companies. I mean, we're just being
Well, yeah,
honest.
that's fair. That's
Because
fair.
that's the thing.
But
Like
like
that's the main
that,
reason why they want the kind of conference matchup for these play-in games is because they want to add more games, but ESPN doesn't want to give up their stranglehold on the playoffs, which is essentially it, if it goes past 16 teams, then essentially the like NBC and CBS and Fox would be able to start bidding on those games. ESPN doesn't want to allow that to happen. And so they want to try to keep it as insulated as they possibly can. Obviously, the SEC has their own interests with their SEC championship game. I do think that's real. That makes them a lot of
oh
money.
yeah.
But it's definitely something, something with the TV companies where they're trying to work this out and say, okay, well, we can expand it, but only if you have these TV companies. And the SEC still isn't for it because the SEC is like, why would we get rid of our 1 versus 2 matchup in the SEC championship game for our sixth best team and our fifth best team playing, in that time slot like that?
Yeah.
To them, that doesn't make any sense.
My big issue, well, I have several issues. One, I don't understand why the Rose Bowl throws a hissy fit about not playing on New Year's Day and like they get away with it. If they have that much power, Rose Bowl, tell them you refuse to host a quarterfinal. We're doing semifinal or championship every year. Like, forget this. As they should, by the way. I went to the Rose Bowl a couple years ago. It was amazing. It was for a quarterfinal game. It was great. The fact that that was a quarterfinal game is ridiculous for
Yeah.
how amazing that place is. I'm sorry. It is as great as they say it is, if not better.
Yeah.
But so that's one thing. Rose Bowl, throw weight around. Second, you can keep conference championship games if you go to 16 teams. So like this concession, I just feel it's like it's moot. Keep the conference championship games as long as you can, because they are fun. They are entertaining. You want to see the best against the best, and it can and put things put incentives in those games like automatic first 2 rounds in your stadium if you win your conference championship game. Like I don't like that they've made them glorified exhibition games at this point. So those are but to your point about TV revenue and ESPN holding a stranglehold, at some point somebody needs to go and tell, like the commissioners in particular need to go and tell ESPN to shove it, quite honestly. And I know that I'm being a little ridiculous right now, but ESPN is not doing good for the sport right now. Granted, none of the TV companies are doing
Well,
good for the sport.
right.
They're
I was
all
gonna say,
they're all in business for themselves. It's like, do what matters for the sport. That will help everybody win.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Was like, yes, we can blame ESPN, and believe me, I'm the first one that's gonna blame ESPN. Like I am gonna do it. But I also need to look at the facts here and say Fox is just as much,
Yeah.
you know, at 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 blame here as well because they want to get obviously into the college football playoffs. Not so much because they think they're going to make a bunch of money off of it, but because they want people to recognize, oh, if we want to watch football, college football, we need to go to Fox, right? That's one of the biggest advantages that ESPN has with the playoffs right now is every single casual who just turns on the playoffs in December or late in December or in January, like they immediately think, "Oh, ESPN, ABC, that's where you watch college football at," right? Like cuz those are the only channels with it on unless it's like a first round game where they, outsource that out to like TBS or something like that. But still, those games typically they do that cuz they're not going to get the highest viewership in the world. But that like that's what Fox and NBC and CBS wants more than anything is they want to be acknowledged as this is where you watch college football at. So that way, on a random Saturday, when somebody sits down and their wife and kids aren't home because they're going to do something, and he says, "I want to turn on a game while I fall asleep," his first reaction won't just be ESPN. He'll also say, "Well, let's see what's going on Fox. Let's see what's going on this one too." So I am with you and everybody else saying 16 teams because we got a lot of people in the chat right now talking about 16 teams, and I totally get that. I am not here saying that like an expanded playoff is the best thing for the sport or anything like that. But I also think about everything around it as well, right? And Kirk Ferentz talked about it at Big Ten Media Days, which is that when your season is over, essentially, because bowl games don't actually mean anything, that's when you get players who opt out. That's when you get players who don't participate. That's when you get fans that are disinterested at the end of the season. That's when you get players who are disinterested at the end of the season. And so, yeah, yes, some of this is on coaching, as we've talked about with the SEC, that, you can't just have a whole bunch of hired mercenary talented guys that you go out and pay their parents just as much money as you pay the kids. So that way they play on the team. Like, you can't just do that. But if we do want actual meaningful football that's not just like random bowl games where we're seeing all the backups play, we have to make these games mean something. And that's why I am on board with a 24 team playoff. It would hurt my soul if they try to keep going to like 28 or 32 or something like that. But I would also understand it because I would also understand that like I said, the bowl games do not mean as much right now. And like I've said before, the bowl games are eventually going to go to in season. Like that's one of the reasons. That's another one of these reasons why they want to go to 24 is because at 24 you're much more likely to see in season interconference matchups than you are at 12 right now, and that's when you would see teams go play at neutral sites and play essentially a bowl game type of situation in week 2 or week 3. It's already starting. I mean, they already have some of these sites that are normally set up for bowl games with neutral site games in college football in 2027, 2028, 2029. These bowl games are getting prepared for it because they know, yeah, this is not long for us to be in the postseason when we're getting all the backups playing.
Yeah.
Because it's not just the backups, too. It's also the transfer portal. A lot of these teams are playing after they've already had half their team into the transfer portal. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, at some point you have to go beyond the playoff discussion and go back to this reality that college football is so broken right now. Mm-hmm. It is going to take reform across the sport. Because the point you just said is we need these games to matter. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a bigger purpose that you're hitting right there, John, is that what is the purpose of college football? And it's shifted to the only reason why you play college football is to win a championship. Mm-hmm. And that was never like, I think that is a reason why, but I think another is like, I think all the others have kind of faded to black, like school pride and, win your conference and rivalry. And, people were making fun of the fact that Purdue was seen as one of the big games for Indiana. And people are like, well, Purdue stinks. Have we forgotten rivalry and how much that matters in college football? Mm-hmm. Like I get why people made fun of it. I do. We made fun of it.
Yeah.
But then looking back, it's like the old Oaken Bucket, like that's what built college football is rivalry games.
Yep.
And the fact that we have put those on a back burner, like people are talking about, and I don't think Ohio State, Michigan think this way, but people have talked about how the rivalry game doesn't matter anymore. Like you could lose to your rival. And Ohio State did this. They lost to their rival and still won the national championship. As a red-blooded Ohio State fan, it still grinds my gears we lost to Michigan. So but my point is we've faded everything else that has made college football great to black. in terms of making a championship, which is why you have opt-outs. It's why you have the transfer portal. It's why bowl games are no longer important. We have to answer the question: how do we make every aspect of college football relevant for the student athlete in the year 2027, the year 2026 and beyond? And we're just not there. Now, to John Jacobs' point, because college football is college football, we still love it.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean it's not broken.
Yeah, college football has changed. Change does not mean broken. Change just means different. Some people deal with change better than others. I've said on this show multiple times, I am more of a traditionalist at heart. I loved the 14 playoff, you know? But unfortunately, the moment I saw Florida State not get in and Alabama get in instead, even though I agreed that Alabama was the better team, I looked at it and I said, it doesn't matter what you do on the field. Why do we play a 12, 13 game season if what you do on the field doesn't matter? And it's the same thing I say right now with the Big Ten versus the SEC, right? And it's the same reason why I want to get rid of these bowl games at the end of the season and I want to go to the 2014 playoff is because right now, if you win your bowl game, everybody says, the other team had opt-outs. Didn't really count.
Yeah.
No big, nobody actually thinks about that game, talks about it, because it doesn't fit their narrative. When in reality, if you do have a 2014 playoff and Iowa plays Tennessee in the first round or Iowa plays Vanderbilt in the first round, even though Vanderbilt only had one opt-out in that game, and they still had Diego Pavia, who was, obviously the one that everybody thought was going to win them that game, then you still have you still should get the recognition that you won that game, but you don't get it because it's a bowl game and bowl games don't count. So to Trojan Panda's point, 20 or 24 CFP will dilute the field way too much and too many sacrificial lambs in the first round, totally unwatchable. I agree they would not be as important as the rest of the playoff. Don't get me wrong. I'm not arguing with you there, Trojan Panda, but they would definitely be more important than the bowl games we have right now. The bowl games right now are total just teams are going to play in them because it's a tradition, but it's a tradition that has gone away. Yeah. But I'm a traditionalist that doesn't say, let's keep the tradition just because it's a tradition. I'm the traditionalist that says, man, it sucks. The tradition is over, but also if people aren't interested in it, why are we still doing it? You know? Because I don't look at it like, it sucks that tradition went away. I look at it and say, sucks that tradition doesn't mean as much anymore. Like you're saying with rivalry games and everything. Yeah. Which also, can I make a point really fast about that? Yeah. Is it funny to you that the conference that screams regionality, conference college football is supposed to be regional and everything else, they're the ones that's making fun of a rival, like a regional rivalry, and saying, that game doesn't actually matter. I don't know. Might just be a little hypocritical.
I think the SEC is grasping for straws because they're not in power anymore. But
yes.
I digress.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think just to be clear, I am not advocating. When I say that college football is broken, I don't mean that we should restore what it once was. I am very much with you in that we have to find structures in every area that support what college football has become. So NIL is a really good example. The transfer portal is a really good example. I don't think those things are bad things. I think a lot of people would say those things have ruined college football. I don't think they've ruined college football. And we've talked about this ad nauseum, so I won't go on and on about this. The lack of regulation is what the problem is. You gotta create a better system for this stuff. Scheduling. The fact that Ross Bjork came on, I forget where he was, but said no one wants to schedule Ohio State beyond 2030. Why? Because they know that they're a wagon. They're going to be a
consistent program in college football. Yeah.
Yeah. So after 2030, no one's picking up the phone and calling Ross Bjork to schedule Ohio State. That's going to be a recurring theme. Everybody's getting mad at Indiana and say, well, Indiana should schedule like a blue blood. Well, here's another thing. Who wants to schedule Indiana right now?
Notre
Because
Dame.
they're a wagon. Huh?
Said Notre Dame.
Well, no,
I guess if
Notre
you believe
Dame.
the reports, but
Yeah,
I
Notre
think
Dame.
Notre Dame maybe didn't want to play that game too. But
Yeah,
anyway,
I,
that's
I
my own
think
little theory in my mind.
I think there's more to that than just Indiana didn't want to play Notre Dame. I think Notre
Yeah.
Dame wanted to play USC.
Yes. Yes. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Um,
and that game changing from not being like end of October, November, every other year changed things too.
yeah.
With that. So,
Yeah,
but yeah,
I digress. But I just think we've got to find so the playoff structure. I don't really care how many teams it is. What I care is does it meet the needs of the sport?
yep.
And yeah, if it's 24, do I think it's too many? Yes, but does it meet the needs of the sport? Yes, but I don't think that's the only. I think you have to have wholesale change in the sport
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
to support what it's become.
And I think that's the best way to put it. I think a lot of people just look and see the number and say I don't like it because of the number. And I get that. I'm not the dude on here that's saying like, you just got to look deeper, you're being stupid. Like I get that. I get where people are coming from because I do like cover this every day and read about it and talk about it every day. I see it a little bit differently. And I see what you're talking about, which is what are the needs of the sport? Where is the sport failing right now? And as much as, yes, a 2014 playoff is too big, like I said, I agree with that. There are also needs in this sport that need to be addressed, and there are very few things that address that better than the 2014 playoff. Sure as heck, Congress isn't going to fix it. You want to know what's happening in Congress right now? Everything's on fire for college football in Congress right now. It's a complete crap show at this point. I wanted to say a different word, but I didn't. It's a complete destruction of college football right now because you got a whole bunch of people who don't actually care about college football. They care about getting votes in their state. They care about winning the political election more than anything. And really, that's what we want it to be. We need to give control back to the people who actually care about the game. But that's what I got.
Yeah.
So,
Are you saying that the opposite of progress is Congress?
I don't want them to come for me, so I will plead the fifth. Just
So
joking.
they're just gonna come after me. Okay, I'm gonna see my. If I'm
Well,
not here on Tuesday,
we Zach is in good health and of good mind, and oh
well,
man, any
can we scrub the last part out? Oh dear.
oh man, any final thoughts or anything on this matter, Zach?
I'm afraid to say something now.
Oh, I had
think
one last question. One last
Oh,
question,
okay.
and this will get us away from the government talk,
Oh, good.
which is exactly what we
Good,
need to
good,
do
good.
right now. So,
Yeah.
do you think? Because I think this is another thing that's really, really hard for people to take into account. We even have some people in the chat right now saying like they don't like conference rivalries, and I get that. But I think this is another aspect that's changing right now in college football. And as much as there are some people that say they don't like conference rivalries, I do think there is an aspect of it that does make college football more fun in this way. And I do think there's an aspect of this that can happen and you still hate your rival. But I think we're seeing like interconference rivalries kind of change to those conference rivalries, right? You don't see Ohio State fans hating Illinois as much as they did 60 years ago when they had the
Mhm.
Illabuck and everything else. You don't see, name your school that used to have a rival years and years ago. Other schools, you've seen them hold on to it. Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Nebraska, they've held on to some of their rivals a lot, and more power to them to make it happen. But you see other schools not making that happen as much, and you see them going to more shows like this because they do hate the SEC or they do hate a team in the SEC, and they have that rivalry aspect there. Because I think for a long time it was our team's never going to make the playoffs, and so we have to look at it somewhere else. I do think there is another aspect of this that a 2014 playoff would start to get rid of the conference rivalry stuff a little bit, not a lot. I mean, it wouldn't go away completely, but with people being able to focus more on their team and playing in the postseason and games that actually matter, I think you would see more of people not care about the conference rivalry aspect and care about their own team's rivalry aspect, especially if they get a rivalry that used to happen back in the day. I'm thinking of like Nebraska and Oklahoma meeting in the playoffs. I'm thinking of, Oklahoma State meeting in the playoffs or something like that. Like if that happened, that's not a conference rivalry thing. That's two teams that legitimately hate each other, right?
Yeah. Well, so there's a couple things that you're touching on here. One is that a number of rivalries have either faded or they're manufactured. And like Ohio State, Illinois is a good example. I wouldn't say that was manufactured. It's very much a rivalry.
Yeah, but like the Illbuck and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. But honestly, the Illbuck has not been I don't think for either Ohio State or Illinois. Part of it is that they don't play it. They don't play each other every year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think aside from 2007, like Ohio State's kind of owned Illinois the past 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, Illinois is a different level program than Ohio State. I think all Illinois fans can be okay with me saying that. I think Illinois is on the rise. But, like, let's be real. Before Brett Bielema, Illinois has kind of been a dumpster fire. And Ohio State has been the anti-dumpster fire. So I think there's that. I think you have manufactured rivalries versus you have the rivalries that were broken up by conference realignment. So Nebraska, Oklahoma is a really good example. They hate each other. Nebraska, Colorado, Oklahoma, like those rivalries are rooted in hatred and history. And then they were just ripped apart. And now all of a sudden you're saying they're going to meet in a game where winner takes all? Yeah, sign me up for that. It's an elimination game? Yeah. Which is honestly, and this is interconference, there's a reason why I think Ohio State, Oregon right now is going to be hotter and hotter and hotter. Because like Oregon knocked off Ohio State in 2021. And then Ohio State got them back after they, in 2024, after they got beat. They knock them off in the playoffs. Like, that's going to become a big rivalry, I think.
Yeah.
It's not traditional. Like, it's Big Ten, Pac-10, old school. But, like, it's going to become, like, I think Indiana, Ohio State, Indiana and Oregon, Indiana and Michigan. Like, I think Indiana is going to have a lot of new rivals in the next 5 to 10 years for as long as Chris Signetti's there.
Or if Bryant Haynes takes over or Mike Shanahan takes over.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, those are guys that are existing to keep moving that forward if they want to stick around, after Signetti retires, which who knows how long that's going to be. And I think you're going to see rivalries created in between conferences too. I mean, Tennessee is absolutely going after Ohio State recruits right now, right? Like that is absolutely something that they are doing.
Tennessee needs to go after someone like, I don't know, like Cal or somebody.
I agree, but if they start meeting in the playoffs every year, every few years,
they're going to get beat by 30 every year in the playoffs.
They will, but it won't matter. Those Tennessee fans are still insane, and they will still.
That's not a rivalry. That's they need to be put in an insane asylum. Sorry, I'm going to stop talking.
You're not wrong. But I'm just trying to use it as an example that, like, if teams play each other multiple times in the playoffs, I think you could see. Like, if Ohio State played Georgia in the playoffs, one of the last
much better
playoffs,
Much
I
better
think that
example.
one. I think that one could have grown a whole lot more because of
Yeah.
what happened back in 2022. You meet them a few years down the road, and then maybe you meet them again, and then it's like, oh, we're keeping record of how they've done in the playoffs in the modern era of college football.
Yeah.
So
And
I,
if
yeah,
Ryan
I
Day keeps talking about speeding and driving in post or in interviews,
yeah, we won't even go the Connor Stallions route. We're running out of time to
oh dear, no,
talk about
no.
him.
I would like to apologize to any Tennessee fans that I've offended, but
There are
you're
good
not
ones. There are good
what?
ones out there.
There
There
are
are
good
good ones
ones.
out there. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. The good ones know their role.
the good ones just get drowned out by all the insane ones, which, in fairness, happens with a lot of Ohio State fans too.
It's true. Yeah. I've said this before. If you're gonna chirp, your team better back it up. Miami finally backed it up, and I'm like, okay, cool. You guys are great. You made a national championship game. You guys can talk all you want.
There you go.
Tennessee fans, you haven't been relevant since 1998. Sit down. I don't care. Like, I think Jeremiah Smith just scored on him again, by the way.
I love when Zach gets in the trash talk.